this final get-together is to give you a practice session in front of an audience, which you don't get usually. It's hard to actually amass a group of people who are not judging you to practice with it. So it is for that reason, and also to confirm certain big choices that you've made during the course of the workshop and see how that translates if you're telling people who have not been in the group and know all the ins and outs. Does it actually come across? And we'll keep it very, very short, 5 minutes max, so we can all get out of here and continue either working or packing or booking. So let's start with your group, as we said. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tommaso, I'm Italiano. I'm the director and co-writer you see just two of us because our producer, Tommaso Righi of Mood Film, he can't stay here. And we have a drama film. We are writing a drama film called about some guys in 20s and a girl in 30s. And we are talking about our generation that some socialist people call the Generation Y or Generation Maybe or Generation Peter Pan. So there is a generation where the people in this generation don't grow up. So our drama movie is a coming of age story, and maybe you can continue with
the movie is called The Levitans, and it's about our generation, as you said, and especially two people who are two Navy cadets, Edo and Teo, and they're 20 years old, and they want to spend the summer vacation in the family villa in Tuscany, in a beautiful family Renaissance villa. So they come there with high expectations, just fresh out of the Navy, and they arrive at the villa and there's a surprise. People are there. And they were hoping to have the villa to themselves for the whole summer. So they look what's happening, and they find out that a wedding, because this villa is sometimes rented out for wedding, a wedding is taking place. So it has been anticipated, and they didn't know anything about it. So what do they decide to do? They hide in the old villa, in the attic of the old villa, and because they somehow insist on staying there. So they find out that who is getting married is Edo's cousin, Anael, who is 30 years old and who is going through a crisis because her wedding was supposed to be in 4 weeks, now it's in 4 days, and she gets cold feet. So she finds out that the guys are there, and she keeps them there. She says, "You have to stay here until the wedding. I want you with me." I say, "What are we going to do here in the old villa? There's nothing. There's no real place to sleep there. We don't have anything. We don't have any food. We have nothing." And said, and then they kind of fall into this fantasy world. All three of them. They start finding something beautiful in the villa. They start feeling this adventure, and we're talking about all three people who all kind of run away from reality and fall into a communal fantasy. And they all three have to cope at the end through the relationship that are tied in this villa, in this kind of communal fantasy. They all three have to, at a certain point, cope with reality and get down, like levitans flying. They have to get down and start walking in real life. Anael finally accepting that she is 30 and it's time for her to decide, do I want to keep like being a child or do I want to grow up? And marry somebody who I love. And Edo confronting his fears with his father, and the fact that he actually always talks about leaving the military academy to become a writer, but never has the courage to do so. And Theo, who was always following his kind of idol, Edo, and finally accepting that this guy he was so taken with is not as great as he thinks, because he has really no courage. And so in the end, Theo is accepting also that sometimes in life, you know, you have to do something courageous, which is actually to find out what you want. And you're 20 and you don't know. And so his ending is that he finds out exactly this. And so it's about three people, like me and Tommaso, and like maybe some of you, who fall into a total fantasy, and in the end, get down to earth and grow up. Thank you.
No, I am director, scriptwriter, and producer, and will be in MFI with my new project, Traces of the Lost, with Paris Petru, who is my scriptwriter and colleague, and Traces, and I have work. Traces of the Lost is my second feature film. I have worked 10 years in the theater and about 14 years in advertising as a director as a commercial advertising spot. And Traces of the Lost is a film, the setup is a thriller, psychological thriller with irony, with paranoia, and with irrational way to see the things. The story is be in Athens, Athens today, in spring, Easter period, and the theme is the fear conquers the city and the people. So I pass to Paris to explain the story.
So you can see the story in the beginning as an extreme contrast, I would say, between what happens outside all this dark universe that Dimitra just described and what happens in our protagonist. So what happens outside, the context is a lot of power cuts, flickering lights everywhere, like a mystery, scary atmosphere. No one knows what is really happening, people are wondering, there are rumors about it. And in general, paranoia. It's like as if people are waiting for something bad to happen, but what exactly they don't know. And in a parallel universe, next to that, like a little protected bubble, this is where we find our character, which is called Elsa. She's around 38 years old, let's say. She's creative director of an advertising company. She's also a sketch artist, and she's doing very well. She's dealing very well with all these difficulties. Actually, she barely notices them. But until the moment that she has to go back to her village, Mesolongi, it's the village, and to dig up the bones of her mother. It's something that happens often in Greece when you have to bury people up. And this is something that brings up old fears, it brings up the past of financial disasters that have happened in family, but it also brings up the theme of suicide. Because Elsa reveals to her sister that actually her mother has committed suicide, which is something that she's trying to deny. But she cannot keep denying anymore, so that's reality. So then she goes back to Athens to her normal reality. Let's say she receives an info alert, like these info alerts you sometimes get from websites, and this info alert is about increasing rate of suicides. So it was supposed to be something normal, but now she sees it in a different way. She's actually pretty bothered by it. It's the exact moment that this bubble begins to be invaded, to be cracked. She begins to feel more insecure, to crack and to feel vulnerable. What happens at the same time at her job, her boss wants her to give a very stressful presentation, very urgent, over 2 days. There is a colleague who is fired, and after that she suffers a panic attack. And also she's asked to lay off people, so she's asked to come up with names that will be later be fired in her job. So everything is taking a toll on her. She begins to mix reality with fantasy, and all this paranoia, all this craziness of the outside world is something that she begins to internalize. It becomes hers, let's say, all these things outside. The only person who is there to support her is Andreas, who is the second most important character of the movie. He's a cynical, a little bit anarchist, like a cool guy, a writer of crime stories. He supports her actually, and there is a flirty relationship that begins between them two, and this relationship ranges between the cynical views of Andreas about the world and the fears of Elsa. So as a reaction to all that, Elsa begins to sketch very strange, scary creatures. We call them humanoid creatures because they look like human but they are not human. She sketches people, scary people who are trapped inside the cylinder. They are trying to go out through rope ladders but they cannot, so this is how she views the world. And that's her reaction to all those things that are happening. All things accumulate, they pile up until the moment that she experiences actually her own panic attack. So she really has a breakdown inside the mall. Andreas is there to collect her. She is there to save her, let's say. She takes her at his home. They're having a calming night together. She puts some music on her. She tells her something that she never heard, that her sketches look actually beautiful, but she can do something more with them. And then the next morning she begins, she wakes up, she feels better, she has a new perspective, she goes back home, she puts classic music for the first time, it's something that she never used to do. And for the first time she starts sketching these scary sketches on a very large canvas, which nearly looks like she's doing something new, like accepting her artistic nature, so that's the idea. So overall, what we are trying to do through Elsa's story, we are talking about fear. This is all about fear, how fear controls your mind. It's about the absurdity of the external world. It's an absurdity that is repeating with the same movement. It's something that you cannot get out of it, and stopping this absurd continuous movement nearly means death, so there's nothing to do about it. This is more or less the controlling idea of the film.
I did not complete the first draft, so in this moment we have not a producer or co-producer, or we must finish first the first complete draft, and after we see for that. But the project is submitted to the Greek Film Center for Development. That's it. Thank you.
Let me introduce Romana, our director and screenwriter, and our Shimon, the screenwriter. My name is Paula, and I'm the producer of the project. Something Happened is a feature fiction drama, which is actually based on real events, which our screenwriter Shimon was part of, and now Shimon will start to tell you about our story.
Well, first of all, I would like to specify that, I was a part of it. Like, it happened in my high school, and it was like my very close friend that died like this. Yeah. Okay. So the story, Something Happened, follows Katka, Robo, and Stella, three young people from high school. Stella is a cool girl. She's very outspoken. She's a natural leader, and she's from out of town, so she lives in a dormitory. Her roommate and best friend is Katka, who is this type of girl, is nice to everyone, sort of a follower to Stella, and sorry. Then we have Robo, who is Stella's boyfriend, but who is not from the dormitory. He's from Bratislava. He's very intelligent. He has a mind of his own, and he sort of doesn't really believe what everything as it is served to him. So the story is set in a Christian school in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. The school, being Christian, has strict rules. It's very rigid, and we in the first part we observe the behavior of these friends, how they behave, what is their social status of Stella, Katka, and Robo, etc. We see Stella doing her crazy shit. She's like, getting drunk with her roommates out in the city and stuff like that. But then one day Stella is called into the director's office, and afterwards she dies. She commits suicide right through this during this school. Everybody's shocked, obviously, and then the investigation starts to happen. But nobody really knows anything because there were no particular links towards what could have led to this tragic event. And in the next days, everybody sort of like wanders off in their own direction. Robo decides to find out something more about her family, but he doesn't really find out anything despite having gone to Stella's hometown and trying to look for her parents and for some links there. Katka finds out that Stella had a doppelganger, that she was taking everything from like how she acted, or what she claimed she knew, the music she liked, everything. And so she gets very disappointed and she decides not to pursue her own investigation, so to say. And the rest of the people are like the rest of the society, basically the director of the school or parents of the class of Stella's classmates. And everybody is sort of conflicting. The director is conflicted because she thinks that she could have helped, but at least at the same time she has to quit the school. And every of the parents is just sort of for themselves. And they're concerned about the safety of the children, but only from the outside. So they want to put bars on the windows instead of just like caring for their mental states more. And we don't really get a sure answer. And now I'm going to move on to Romana so that she can tell you the changes that we've made during this workshop.
Hello, so I would like just to update you shortly on changes and progress of our script during our MFI sessions. Basically, after feedback from our colleagues and from Jan, we decided that it would be the best to shorten up the first part before Stella's suicide. In this way, her act becomes even more unpredictable, and we are even more interested to find out why this happened to this cool girl, and basically we are in it with all the rest of the characters that are trying to find out and find some hints on how this happened. I think what was also an important step is that we reduced the number of characters, so the characters that were not as important to the story simply now became really second to third level characters, and we are focusing more on Katka and Robo, who are kind of the most important characters from the students. And also we added more space for parents and for the school to react, so they also have their own part there. But mostly the most important lines for me right now are Robo's and Stella's part. Robo's and Katka's part in the investigation. So basically they have their own investigations and everyone has some kind of an own theory why Stella could do this. So this for me is represents an important step, because I think it made our story more maybe clear, easy to read to the audience, and more relatable. And also another change that we have is that, let me say, we had this issue that sometimes things hinting to Stella's suicide or the thing that we wanted to come through were not clear enough and it did not count as hints. So we tried to fight this also, and just to make the story really easy to follow. So I hope we were successful, and we will continue to work on the script at this stage. And I think now I should just give microphone to Paula to tell you about next. Yeah, so we are running out of time. So basically, we are now applying for funding from Slovak National Audiovisual Fund for pre-production phase, and we are already collaborating with our co-producer Mandragora from Romania. Therefore, our DOP is Romanian, so there are some links to it. And we hope that we will succeed and we will make this film one day. Okay, thank you.
So my name, as you know, is Hussein, and I'm director, as you know, director of the film. I'm in the process of writing a new draft. My producer is Lara. She's not here because of some also another project she's working on. So my story is about Zahi and Zena, Hassan and Zena, who is a Lebanese Palestinian, and they have to deal with the shock of losing a child and the horror of releasing the body out of the hospital. Because due to the Palestinian citizenship he cannot give the mother cannot give the citizenship to a son of a foreigner. So they have to search from they have to run, and they cannot be buried as a son in a normal Lebanese cemetery. So they have to search from a camp to a camp, running from a camp to a camp to secure a grave for the son, and so they can release the body out of the hospital. So yeah, that's the basics of the story. As they succeed at the end to find a way out of it. The story comes from it's like, because I work with an NGO, so it's like based on sort of stuff. Inspired by people, characters, and locations that I encountered in my life. And yeah, I mean, I was working in an NGO where I have to shoot the testimonies for Lebanese women who are married to foreigners. It's called ACT, and they were like very sad, and you can see it in their eyes that they cannot secure a future for their sons. They cannot put them in a normal school. They cannot give them a decent education, a decent future. They cannot provide this for them, and they are helpless because it's all of the demography and the political issue in Lebanon. So at this point, I came with a fourth draft, and now I'm working on the fifth draft here with MFI, adding more details and just realizing the purpose of the journey that they have to go through. Yeah, and we are on the process of securing the development fund from our cultural fund, and we will apply again for Doha and all the Middle Eastern fund first. We have a German interest in the project, so we hope so.
The good move, because these strikes really stress me and piss me off.
Welcome to the club, Paolo.
Sorry?
Welcome to the club, sweetheart.
I don't understand. Anyway, I tried to do my best, and I think that there were some feedbacks. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm Paolo Taddei, and I'm an Italian writer. I have a background as a technician, mainly cameraman, DOP, and photographer. But in the last 5 years, I started to write, and I wrote a few scripts, and some of them were awarded or selected at some workshop and developed with them. The script I'm introducing you here is entitled Cavallo del Re. It's a noir, and it's the story of Giovanni. Giovanni is an ex-jockey who earned his living by killing horses to get their passport. It's an old trick in the business of racehorse. They use passports of old horses to enter into the races with young, stolen, or maybe from illegal provenience horses, in order to get better quote to odds, or to get better odds. One day, Giovanni found among the horses he has to bring to death the horse that was his beloved horse, the horse who was his champion, the horse with whom he had won so many races in the past years. Obviously, you know, he realized that he doesn't want to kill his beloved horse. But he's blackmailed by the owner of the horse because the horse need this passport to use it with another one. And the fact is that this owner called Ali is the same boy to whom Giovanni owes a lot of money for his betting. So Giovanni tries to find a way not to kill his horse, and he challenged Ali by telling him, okay, I'm gonna back riding with the horse, and if I will win the race, I will buy the horse. Ali accepted that at only one condition, that even if he will win the race, he will have the money. Let's say Giovanni has to buy anyway the horse, but it will be safe. Giovanni accepts this, and he has to train a little bit because he has been becoming fat, to lose some kilos to go back riding. The race is on, and Giovanni loses for a very, very short distance. Well, Giovanni doesn't resign and try to succeed on saving his horse and find a substitute horse. But Ali discovers, and in the end, when they faces for the last duel, the price that Giovanni will have to pay, it's very high, but finally, Chemer, that's the name of the horse, will be saved. That's the story, the main plot. We have been working on it with Nico, and we made it work much better than it was before. We made a few changes. I cut off some characters and something, like we do in this workshop. It's a vintage story, and it has been inspired by B-movie and spaghetti western, let's say genre movies of the 70s in Italy. And I would like to be the director of it. It would be my first feature film, but I could even consider the hypothesis to let it go. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, so I think this pitch is a very good opportunity to tell you again my best line of this week, which was unfortunately unheard when it was spoken the first time. Well, the background is that Fiona and I, we went up the hill, the mountain next to the resort, and when then Anita asked me, why did you go up the hill? And I said, well, to be closer to God, of course. And then she asked me, how is the script doing? Is it also getting closer to God? And I said, no, but it's getting closer to good. And that's really the status of my project in a nutshell. As you may remember, the story was in a bit of a mess when I originally pitched in Nisiros. But now, after Samos, I think it's actually starting to become something good even. So, it's called paradosis, and the fact that, yes, processes away. The fact that this is a Greek word and that we're here in Greece is a complete coincidence. But scriptwriters, as you know, don't like coincidences. So it's actually quite interesting that the fact that we are in Greece and that my project has a Greek title is becoming less and less of a coincidence as time goes by. The story takes place in the present day, across the European continent. The locations of the story have changed, but now you see that... sorry, what?
It's leading to Samos.
Yes, kind of. I mean, it's going to... so the main character, Jesper, if you remember, he travels from his native Stockholm to Berlin, Budapest, and then to Greece, but maybe Lesbos rather than Samos. The whole thing starts with Jesper meeting a girl, Beata. She, it turns out, eventually, is somewhat of a fascist renegade, kind of, with terrorist intentions, fighting towards her conservative anti-immigration goal. Beata is a symbol of dying Europe desperately trying to hold on to an idealist image of this part of the world. Where was I? Oh yes, it's set in the reality that we live in, but since it's a film, it's an exaggerated version of reality. And in a way, the story even has fantasy elements. I think the film would be an exciting portrait of Europe's socio-political state today. And in my opinion, the key selling point is that it has the great advantage of not having an agenda or a message, nor is it draped in the shroud of political correctness. So the question is, am I happy with the direction the script is going, as Anita asked? Well, yes. Usually, when you leave stuff behind, as you always do, there's a sense of nostalgia, and you start missing what is gone. But I realized during this workshop that you have to overcome this kind of sentimentalism and kill your darlings. I mean, obviously, everyone knows the expression "kill your darlings," but I not only know it, I understand it now. And that serial killing with no remorse is the only way forward. The story has certainly become stronger, both in terms of logic, structure, and the general sense of making sense. But, I'm not going to go into details as to what has changed in the process, but I will tell you this. I have found a premise. Actually, I haven't found it. I put it there, but Nikos found it. So, Jesper, maybe that's the guy on the left. He meets his ideal dream girl, Beata Kurzova. In the end, she turns out to be something completely different than what he had expected. So the ideal was just an illusion. Beata herself is also a dreamer. She has a vision of a classical Europe without neither trash culture nor immigrants or refugees. On a side note, this is of course a fake ideal. There was never a pure Europe with pure Europeans. Nevertheless, the nemesis of Beata and her neo-conservative ideals is a feminist activist group, Femigal, who are fighting for a world with no inequality and no injustice. And as any intelligent person understands, this is unfortunately also an illusion, a chimera, another Greek word, off topic. In other words, all main characters have ideals towards which they strive, but their aspirations are in the end not only futile, they lead to catastrophic results. So, the theme of the film the premise of the film can be formulated as such. Seeking the ideal is a dangerous path to take. And I arrived at this premise by understanding the story better, and this is totally thanks to the workshop. The participants and the tutor Nikos, of course. And I think the arrival at this logline, if we call it that, is a symbol of the process, the progress that this workshop has yielded for me.
My name is Urša. I'm from Slovenia, and my project is titled "My Last Year as a Loser." It's set in Slovenia, present day, in the city of Ljubljana, where I'm from, and it talks about the present state of my generation in the country. Because you see, the current economical situation in Slovenia is pretty bad for young people, and all the smart, educated, ambitious people have moved out already, if some of them are planning to still. And only losers like me and a couple of my friends are still staying there, or maybe some idealistic people. A definition of a loser in current Slovenian standards is a person who is still stupid enough to live in Slovenia and has not moved on to better and brighter things somewhere in Northern Europe or America or more economically prosperous place. So My film is a drama comedy, and my main character is Špela. She's 29, and by the standards that I just described, he's a total loser. All of her friends have moved out already, so she only sees them by Skype. And she graduated from art history because this is something that she loves. But of course that means that she hasn't ever had a steady job in her life. And she's been, for the last 10 years, she's been working in menial jobs, like currently she's a lifeguard at the pool, and she's always broke. And but she has been volunteering at a gallery, and she's expecting to get a job there because finally, after however many years, there's a junior position opening, and she's been there the longest of all the volunteers and has the best education. And her longtime boyfriend is the latest of the people in Slovenia who are thinking about going abroad because he has an offer from a startup in San Francisco. And he decides to go for a trial period just to see if they like him, if he likes it. And Špela doesn't want to go because there's a dream job finally waiting for her. Of course, they say goodbye, he leaves, and her job falls through because she's overeducated and it's above the pay grade that they can afford. And she can't pay the rent because her lifeguard job is over, the season has ended. Her boyfriend didn't really pay the last month's rent because he was too busy with planning and preparation for going. And now she is stuck with her parents. She moves back to their apartment, but she can't stay in her old childhood room because her old grandmother is living there now. She's a bit sick, the parents are taking care of her, so she sleeps on the couch. And her boyfriend decides he really likes San Francisco, but the other thing he also likes is the freedom that he suddenly has. He's starting from zero, he has no responsibilities, no obligations, and he thinks it's better if they broke up, you know. She should stay in Ljubljana, he should stay there. And our Špela now has got to try to find a purpose somehow, try to find a way to live or something to do that would actually be useful to somebody, because she's feeling totally useless. And of course she feels isolated and alone because she has no one in Ljubljana except for her family, who are a bunch of very stubborn people. And her grandmother thinks she should have had a baby, held on to her boyfriend, gotten married a while ago. Her father feels guilty because she has a worse life than he did, and he didn't prepare her for this economic situation that he had no clue about. And her mother thinks she's just not trying enough. And so the only paid job that, you know, would actually pay well that she could get is as a fortune teller at a phone line, which is a very popular business and a growing business in Slovenia right now, where you tell all desperate ladies their future. And it costs a lot of money, and all desperate ladies are spending tons of money, but it's a growing business, and the only people that she can hang out with in Ljubljana are losers like her, but they decided that it's maybe okay to be, you know, because the only way in Slovenia to sort of be satisfied is to be really laid back, have no ambition, smoke weed and just relax. So her main dilemma is whether to accept this fate or try to find her own way out somehow. My project is I've made some, I think, really good progress here in the workshop, made the character more active and brought out her background a little bit more and the family situation, so I'm very happy with that. I'm still working, I will start writing the new draft when I return. I have a producer attached, Vertigo Films from Ljubljana, and we also have already gotten a little funding from Slovenian Film Fund. So we will continue to be working on the script. I think it will be very intense for the next couple of months, and hope to have a draft that will be a good read ready by the end of the year. So that's it.
Good morning everybody. As you all know, this is Natasha. She's the director of our project -1. We are writing it together, and we have also a producer who is Fene Kosovica, who is back in Athens. Without further, and I am Manus also, as you also know. So we will start right away with our story. -1 is an absurd dark comedy that takes place in contemporary Athens during the hot summer in Athens. Due to massive unemployment, all the inhabitants of an apartment block, they rent out their apartments to tourists, while themselves at the same time they move to their -1 underground basement in a self-made camp that created there. This is a secret well kept from the tourists who know nothing about it, as the inhabitants fear that this is going to ruin their reputation. Now our film starts when the last remainers that were living still upstairs, Vangelis and Elsa, are moving down for the first time. They're trying to adjust at their new... And Elsa is also pregnant, which is really important. They move down there, they try to adjust to their new life, but due to a mistake that Elsa makes, their secret is revealed, and the tourists discover this underground self-made camp. All the inhabitants freak out because they believe that their business is destroyed, but actually Vangelis, who's an innovation business guy, sees this as an opportunity and suggests that they turn their self-made camp into some kind of museum, issuing tickets and making themselves exhibition for the tourists. So they start the museum, and it's going really well. More and more tourists are coming there. Just give me a minute. And so they say, what shall we do next? Okay, so they say we should expand, because Vangelis sees this as an opportunity for all of them to make enough money to eventually go upstairs someday. So they form all together a company, and they take a loan to invest and expand the museum. So they turn -1 live museum into a proper museum with a coffee shop, a souvenir shop, and more installments. And little by little, they are becoming some kind of superstars that they make more and more bizarre services for the tourists. Yes.
I'll continue, but the better the museum becomes, Elsa suffocates more and more being the exhibit. And also Vangelis neglects her more and more because he's more absorbed into the museum business. So one day she rebels, she goes upstairs, kicks out their guests, and she refuses to return. Vangelis is desperate, not only because he fights with his wife, but also her service downstairs is very popular and in demand. So he casts an actress to come and replace Elsa and do her service. But one day, on top of that, competition strikes, and more -1 live museums open, and the competition threatens to destroy it all. So the inhabitants, being desperate, they take another loan and make a last effort to thrive and return back to business. And they launch a new service called -1, the role-playing game, where they teach the tourists how to become themselves and take their part in the basement and and sleep in their basement flats. So having their apartments booked out and their basement flats booked out by tourists, one by one they move to -2, and they end up trapped in a role-playing game that seems to have no end.
this is a story more or less. As you can see, it hasn't changed much, but now we do have two protagonists who lead the story, and they're the newcomers, and also they're a couple, so there is also personal tension between them also. That's it more or less in terms of script. We have written our first draft up into almost second act.
We have applied for development for the Greek Film Center, and we also have a German interest, so we also hope. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sofia Serelli from Italy. The project is called Safe Love. It's about Nina, a 35 years old woman. She's an expert in probabilities, algorithm. She's a sort of actuary. She works into an insurance company. And with her colleague Jacopo, she's working in a very secret project about a pair of glasses that can provide you a sort of taste, a little trailer of a real near future, like a few days, like forecast weather. And they're working on this secret project. Nina is quite successful. She has a beautiful flat in Milano. We are in Milano in a tomorrowish today, we can say a very near future. And she has the right amount of friends, but the strongest relationship that she has is with her mother, who is not the typical Italian mother. She's not sweet, she doesn't cook lasagna, instead she's quite sarcastic, really cynical, and she prefers to cook tofu lasagna, for example. And she acts like a Clint Eastwood, for example, a female Clint Eastwood. And for her, she grew up alone with this kind of mother, and so it's kind of tough for her. And she has always been the good girl, Nina, in the sense that she has always respected the limits of science because she's so professional, and also in her personal life. But after a whole life spent with her mother, after the last disappointment in love inflicted by her colleague Jacopo, when she meets this new guy who seems so illogical, so unpredictable, completely incoherent, she decides to go beyond the limits of science and try the glasses for her own personal life and have a trailer of the future relationship that she will have with this guy at the beginning just for a week. So Lorenzo, this guy, it's her first test for these glasses, and the first week she's at the same time she's testing the invention and also falling in love with him. And at the end of the week, she wants to see more of their story. She cannot accept to be passive and see how it's going on, like everyone of us. And so she works so hard to invent a new algorithm to predict a trailer of all the story until the end of the story, because she wants to know how it ends. And after hard work, she's helped by her friends, but also by her mother, because she's an expert in love disasters. And at the end, she manages to create this new algorithm, and she sees the trailer of the whole stories until the end, and the story ends in a bad way. At this point, she wants to escape from that, but it's too late because she's like an heroin addicted. And so she tries to stay and find out what is wrong in her relationship with him, and fix it and change the future. But she ends up trapped into this self-fulfilled prophecy, and the story ends up exactly in the way she saw. But she feels like she can face that because she was prepared to it. It was something that she can control. But something happened and she's not prepared to it. Her mother suddenly died, and this pain is something very big for her. The pain she was trying to avoid so much with Lorenzo in her love story gets her in another way. in this way, with the grief for her mother. And the pain devastates her, but she will learn in some way that pain can have also a good, it can be also good in some way. That this pain can let her evolve in something different from what she was. So this is more or less the story. I'd like it to be a sweeter bit comedy with this sci-fi element. And here on MFI we are shaking the story a lot, also the mechanism of glasses, we are still shaking it. And I'm trying to make the story really stable and effective, and then I will look for a director, because I'm just the writer and also a producer. So let's hope all together and let's see.
Hi. So I have many notes of rambling, I'm afraid. My name is Araceli. I'm the writer and director of the film Holy Emmy. And the film is the story of Emmy's becoming, of her realizing that she has a charisma. This process is not, is very thoroughly examined in this film, in a very, through what it means for her and the repercussion it has on the very intimate relationship and very close relationship that she has with her sister, Teresa. Emmy and Teresa are two Filipina sisters living in Greece, and they have created around them a very tight nest that protects them, and the one defines herself through the other. And Emmy has always seen herself being hidden and quieted down and protected by Teresa. In the film, Teresa falls in love with a Greek man, and that is the inciting incident that gives that shakes their relationship. And for that, Emmy sees like a crack in the nest, as Sophia says, and looks to find herself in a different way, and she claims to go work for her mother's previous employer, Christina. A place that she doesn't know a lot of, because her mother and her sister have been keeping a lot of secrets about. And there she discovers Luis, a Filipino healer, who initiates her into a lot of her, and he explained for her that things that she was seeing that were happening, experiences of hers, that are things that actually are her talent. But this talent, as is seen there, is something that has always terrified both Teresa and her mother, and that's why they have been keeping it from her. And as Teresa gets pregnant from her Greek boyfriend's child, she starts seeing, Emmy starts seeing herself in the eyes of her sister as something that can be harmful to her. At the end, Emmy assumes her real identity, even if that means that she needs to sacrifice the relationship she had with her sister, or at least redefine it, as she has had to redefine also who she is. So this is an intimate story and a psychological drama about first of all, the codependency pattern that these two sisters have, but also it has a lot of elements of supernatural that for me are just, it's just a distorted reality that is seen because of the very subjective gaze that the whole film has in Amy's experience. It is a story about sisterhood and motherhood and womanhood, so there's a lot of imagery that really visits images of blood in a way that has in their bodies, in order to show the two different paths that the women take. That the one like follows most of her womanly desires, and Amy has the same experiences of her body and her blood that lead her to her calling. So one can say from the outside that they are mirrors, the one of the other, like they're the two sides of one whole. And I wanted to say a bit about my interest in making this film. Of course, it has to do with my point of view, my experience. I was raised by my mother and my aunt, and they had this sort of relationship because of the frailty of my mother and my aunt being a very strong woman that would take on a lot of our lives. But at the same time, I never knew my biological father. He was a foreigner. And also, as I grew up, many things that I didn't understand, I was always imagining that is the part of me that I don't know. So I was intrigued by having these women displaced and the fact that they don't know a lot of themselves, and that's why they're also Filipinos. That is the displacement that creates also this this distance between her part of their core identity. And to tell us a bit about MFI, that I had worked before coming a lot on their relationship, but it has been through the help of my peers been more clarified and shaped to create like narrative beats. And also I've worked a lot with the research and collecting a lot of stories for the people that are from Filipinas in Athens, because we have a very big community. But at the same time with Dimitris, he helped me a lot finding a little bit of the aspect of the more genre elements of her discovering her powers and the building of the suspense. So that's it. And I came with a draft already, but I think I'm leaving with a new draft that I think is works better. I still have things to clarify. And and the language is Greek and Filipino and English.
Okay, so hello. I'm Eske, this is Therese, and we're here with a project called Island that we are writing together. The story takes place last summer on an island, a Greek island, much like this one, and actually at a resort much like this one. It could take place here. But of course, last summer was also the time when more than maybe 1,000 refugees arrived on this island every day. So it centers on a Danish family who come here on a holiday to sort of repair or fix their relationship issues, and then they come face to face with this refugee crisis, and bad things happen. So the characters are they're more developed than they used to be, but they're pretty much the same. There's the father Mikkel, who's in his late 30s and is the protagonist, and his wife Louise, who's maybe a few years younger. She's been away from work for some months on sick leave because she suffered from stress. And this is part of what they hope to, or Mikkel hopes to fix with this vacation. And there's a daughter, Ella, who's 8 years old, and she's a very bright girl, it says here. The supporting characters is Ahmed, who's an Afghan refugee in his 40s, and he's also a father, and he's left his family behind in Turkey to go to Europe and sort of bring them over later. And there's Susanna, who's in her 60s, and an idealist veteran volunteer health worker from around the world. I think she's British. Yeah? She's been traveling the world for the last 30 years. She's been traveling the world from crisis to crisis, just helping out where she can. And I'm going to give this microphone to Lisa for the plot.
Thank you very much. So what happens is that the little family arrive at the resort. Mikkel has booked this vacation in order for Louise to get better because she's been off work sick with stress. So they sort of try to get a very relaxing feeling going, but straight away they're faced with the refugee situation on the island. So they try to get away from that by going to the other side of the island. But on the way back at night, they hit Ahmed with the car as he's walking along the side of the road towards the camp from coming. Mikkel is driving the car. It's very important. So they take him to the hospital and he's not too badly hurt, and Mikkel thinks it'll be the end of this story. But Louise can't let go of the thought of this man they injured. So they go looking for him at the refugee camp, but they can't find him, and instead they meet Susanna. So Louise gets more and more involved in volunteering to the point where she considers leaving the family to follow Susanna on her quest around the world. Mikkel tries to hold her back, but he's left to look after Ella, and also he has to deal with Ahmed, who keeps coming back, wanting with his wound on his leg is getting worse and worse, and he wants money. So at one point, Mikkel refuses to give him any more money, but it turns out that Ahmed was actually needing the money to bring his family over to Turkey. So he was using the leg as an excuse and making it worse on purpose to put pressure on Mikkel. So after this, Ahmed is now in a life-threatening situation, and Mikkel and Louise join forces trying to save him. But it's too late. He dies from the infection, and they're reunited in grief and remorse.
Yes. So, if we had to compare this version to the original one that we had before Nisra's, we think this story has become way more focused, and also on Mikkel as the main character. Because before we didn't really know who was the main character. The structure has become clearer, and the characters have become more developed with backstories and stuff like that. Also, we've been taking out, that's part of what we've been doing here, we've been taking out some of the more pseudo-thriller genre elements and made it hopefully a more realistic drama. And so there's a major change that now Ahmed dies instead of merely being deported back to Turkey, which should hopefully make the story stronger. And will you talk about this?
So we are at the point of the project where we haven't really gone out and tried to raise funding for anything but the workshop till now. So what we plan to do with our sparkling new outline after Samos is to go and find some collaborators and some money.
background to appear very sophisticated, but that would not appear very pleasant for you if I would read it. So I'm actually trying to make that short and sexy. I should try. My name is Fiona. I am here with a project that is called Lost in Paradise. And it's not about the situation we are having now in the resort waiting for an airplane to take us off. And the main character is not Jack Nicholson, but there's another very fancy character in my story which is played by David Hasselhoff, but I will not go into that part of the story. But there is a few absurd elements to my film, which means that the genre, or probably the type of film I'm writing, is character-based tragic comedy with that likes to play and to flirt with the surreal, the absurd, the atmosphere, and trembling, I realize, so I don't know. My main character is called Eugen. I learned that it means in Greek the polite one. I thought that it means actually the well-born. He's a son of a Czech immigrant to Switzerland that escaped communism in the 60s. His mother is Swiss, so in his very existence there is probably his inner conflict, and it's a conflict of identity, like who am I, what do I do, what do I want to do in life, and where do I belong to. So he's practically an outsider drifting around and escaping at the sweet age of 28, the Swiss adaptance, and rescues himself to Prague, the city his father originates from. Tries there to establish a music club, underground, psychedelic, cool. It seems to work fine, but as the story sets in, we find him quite on a bankrupted moment in his life. There's not a lot of perspective. He doesn't really know what to do. He lost his club based through some immobility, corruption. So basically he's not doing that well. He's a big lover of alcohol and women, but highly dislikes to take any further steps into responsibility, which just tracks back to the fact that he's strongly insecure and actually not that cool as he might appear on the surface. He's an anti-heroic character, clumsy, but there's the God particle about him. He's very charming, almost charismatic, I would say. So the story sets in Prague with him being somehow lost in alcohol and escapisms, and he has a calling home to his father's 70th birthday. He tries to kind of retard that moment, to miss the train, doesn't want to go there, but somehow he ends up there, a bit retarded, underdressed in this very fancy Swiss setup of a celebration of a man that succeeded in life, which is his father. There at this party, he suddenly finds out that his best friend is dead, and nobody has told him anything about it. So he enters into a quite bizarre investigation of why nobody had talked or informed him about the death of his very good friend. And he enters into something that we called, with Dimitri's help, the conspiracy of silence, which of course is a metaphorical way to talk about facade mentality I came from, where a lot of rotten things are somewhere in the basement, but we appear very well off. Anyways, he figures out very soon that his friend died by suicide, and behind that suicide is probably a typical burnout, depression, not that happy story. I don't really know how to cut a long story short, so what happens is that Eugen, through this figuring out what happened to his best friends, unconsciously starts to end up in his kind of alter ego friend's shoes, and tries to become a good boy, adapting himself to the Swiss happy way of life. Like he tries to get a job, But eventually, of course, he has a moment of realization that that is not it, because that is not him, it is a character-based story. And he ends up in Prague with a different way of seeing the world around him. So that means what seemed to be ideal doesn't seem ideal to him anymore. So he figures out that he is still lost. But probably there is a way out, and I might to hope that it might be a woman, but I'm not completely sure about that. When I get to the part of the MFI workshop, where did it lead me and what did it give to me? Well, it gave me a lot of understanding and hope, and it's kind of helped me to get towards the third act. And yes, thank you for that. And I might probably try just to end that with a very short story of Kafka, since I live in Czech Republic, but I'm from Switzerland, so just that I missed to say, who wouldn't know that yet. There is this short story that talks about this little mouse who is looking at the world and says, "Oh fuck, it's so big and it's so free, I'm so scared." So the little mouse is very happy when it sees in the background, somewhere far away, walls, and directs itself toward these walls. And while it's directing itself to the walls also start crazily go up, and become more and more narrow, until the little mouse finds itself in the last room and hears a voice. And it is the cat who says you just have to turn around and move into a different direction, and eats the little mouse. So end of the story. My story is actually just about the guy trying to escape the cat, but not really knowing where he has to direct himself to, and that's it for now. Thank you very much.
There's no sound. I'm not sorting out. Thanks. He was creative.
Hello, this is Ruth Olshan, the director and writer of Raspberries with Mustard, and I'm the writer as well. Last time I was really nervous, so I'm nervous this time again, but I have a little help. Mary is a 13-year-old girl, and she's in love, but with the wrong guy. She's grown up with her little brother and with her father, who's actually an undertaker. So Mary has a quite different relationship to death and life. Also because her mother died 6 years ago, but she has to come to terms with this loss. She finds a special way to communicate with her mother. She writes private letters to her mama and puts it in every coffin in the undertaker's funeral parlor. So this is the way how to communicate with her mother, and she believes that her mother knows with these letters what's going on with her feelings and with her minds here on the earth. But the very special thing about Mary is she can fly. Since she falls in love with Rocco. Rocco is the guy in the village. The secret crush of every girl in the town. But unfortunately, he has no interest in her, since he witnesses her flying. First he thinks, oh, maybe this is a vision, a girl can fly. But then he considers she's a sort of alien and steps away from her. Apart from that, he has a girlfriend as well. And when Mary sees them kissing very passionately, she loses her ability to fly. So Mary goes through really heavy crisis, also because her father wants to have a new woman and a new wife in his life, and Mary doesn't want a new mother. With the help of her best friend, Clara, a girl who wants to be the first female priest in the Catholic Church, Mary learns to accept her father's new wife and she opens her heart up for Mr. Right, who's actually Rocco's younger brother, and he was always by her side. In the end, they kiss and they float up in the air, still kissing, happily ever after. Both can fly.
So now you see the visuals behind us. I'll just tell you quickly the changes in the script which we worked on with the help of Miroslav and the group. So basically we skip the heritage. It's not an inherited ability anymore. Then also it's still a secret, but Rocco's still the guy who she's in love with, can't see her. That's why this is going to become even more a problem for her. She is less grumpy overall, and I think we changed a little bit in the structure. I think we really focus on what a little girl's problem might be, the accepting of new things in her life, the accepting of loss, but also the accepting of being rejected from somebody. So basically it's a film that it's a comedy with a dramatic impact, filmed with magical realism. That's what I want as a director. And on the production stage is the following. We are working with our wonderful producers, Susanne, Paul, and Nora, and Susie you have met. And we are talking to commissioning editors. In Germany, you always need a commissioning editor in order to make a film for cinema release. We have a distributor on board. We are talking to world sales. We are also working with the publishing house because a book has been published already. So there is a marketing concept to this, and very nicely we are invited at the co-production market in Amsterdam Syndicate in October. So that is wonderful. Everything is set, the marketing concept, budget, all the papers are ready. We have submitted the project in September to the National Film Board. They had already, years ago they funded this project, and we will go for more submissions either in December or in January. To me as a director, I really want to emphasize that this is a film about a child, for children, but definitely also for adults. It's not a children's movie per se. That's why, and I love magical realism. I love these very little things that are magical in our life, because this is what happens, a lot of magic in our life. That's it. What you see is basically, this is the storyboard which we worked on years ago when we had half of the budget already given. And it's done with a professional storyboarder. And thanks for Kostas for being so sweet to take care of the timing of the pictures. And we actually worked out the very difficult flying scenes. That's what you basically see here because of special effects and things like that. So, thanks for this.
So I think acceptance.
So thank you, Miroslav. I know you don't want to have compliments. I'm not going to do one.
This is why I'm doing the compliment.
To mention, since last time I was here with a red-haired producer, and I forgot to tell the production part, and I just would like to say that actually meanwhile we got development money from the Czech Film Fund, and we will be at the co-production market in Thessaloniki, and that's actually part of MFI also to say thanks to you again, and we will apply for the Swiss fund, I think maybe in May 2017, and it's planned to be shot in Prague and Bern in August 2018. So not to forget Christina completely. Thank you.
So I'm Sonia. My project is Nearby, Far Away, and it's the story of Olga, a 13-year-old Greek-German young woman, who lives in Greece. Her father is German and her mother is Greek. And she's
she has been brought up as a Jew from her father's side. So her father abandoned them when she was 10 years old. And since then, she has really built her life based on this Jewish heritage that she carries from her father. And she teaches at the Jewish School of Athens. She teaches her father's memories as a Holocaust survivor. And her only family, her only real family is within the Jewish community. And when her mother dies, she's left basically with almost no parents. She's left with no parent and with no life memories. So she takes shelter in the idea of becoming a rabbi in a country that doesn't really support it. And this desire of her gives her the strength to face her demons of not looking for her father for 20 years. So in order for her to become a rabbi, she first has to prove to the Jewish community that she is a Jew and that her father is a Jew. And therefore, she decides to travel to Germany and meet her father in order to get the Jewish identity certification. So when she finally tracks him down, at first he rejects her and pretends that he doesn't recognize her, but then he tells her that they're not Jewish. But she's really reluctant to believe him. And she's obsessed with finding the truth. So she discovers the rest of the German family, and from them she discovers that not only they're not Jewish, but in fact there are a Nazi family who persecuted the Jews in the war. So she returns back to Greece, and she needs to decide whether she's going to live with this new truth that she had discovered for herself, or whether she's going to maintain the mythology and the fantasies and the world of lies that her father has created for her, which is her essence and her identity. And it is a personal story, and it resonates in my own life. And I know that I want to make this film because it's my way to understand my father, and also to understand what it means to inherit this sort of fake identity, which has become your own identity. Because, that the lies that my father has created in order to survive his guilt has become my truth for a lifetime, and that's it.
Sci-fi effects.
ML5.
Never lie to a rabbi.
Yeah, exactly. This is the consequences of me writing this story. I don't know what to do. Should I go?
Nice.
Okay, anyway, so this is my second time. Christina, should I carry on or should I go?
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. It's safer actually like this. So this
here. So this is my second time in MFI. I was here 2 years ago with my first feature film, To Be. And I worked with Cristina Lazaridi the previous time, and we're working again together. And it's been very significant for me to be here because I came with many ideas and many things that I needed to tell, that I wanted to tell, but no story structure. And during the course of these months, I hope that I came up with a story that still has all the elements that are important to me, but it's a story that's universal and relates to other people. So this is it. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much to create this ambiance. It looks like a Fellini movie. Yeah. I'm Pascal Tessot, I'm from France. I'm very happy of this experience of MA5, so thank you all the guys and girls to share your experience and the participant of my group. It was a very nice interconnection. I think it helps all the stories, and I wanted to thank Christina because I learned so much about my story I didn't know, and it was a very beautiful working time, so thank you so much. So I'm writing my second feature film called Lutèce. It's a new title. Lutèce is the older name of Paris, of the Middle Age. So it's a very known name in France, not in Europe, but I like this old school name. It's a love story between two opposite worlds, the French suburbs and the French bourgeoisie, which turn in a tragedy mood. So the story, it's a story of Kalim, a 34 years old black reformed drug dealer, who goes out of jail, determined to turn the page. He's going back to his hood, and he refuses his childhood's bad influence, trying to move out of the violent environment of his ghetto. Helped by his friend Noura, a young Muslim student who is becoming his mentor and engaged him in social activism. He's looking for a job and a flat to escape, and he meets Marie by accident, a young and attractive Parisian from a fancy part of the city. Torn between two opposite women, he feels that he's betraying both parts of himself. And when Marie becomes pregnant, and then the trust is over, all the demons of Kalim's past destroy their passion and the hope of integration. This film is a very personal movie because I wanted to show the difficulty for people from the suburbs to choose their freedom and the mutual prejudice which separate more and more my country into opposite camps. If love can be the only answer to overcome of the French alienation, the gap between two worlds makes hope utopic and fragile. By this film, I want to show an authentic and complex reality we never show usually about black French people.
From the beginning of the workshop here, I managed to transform my thriller style to a love story by creating precise backstories and strong connection between characters, which move the storyline. The fear is always there, but feelings are now the first motor of my story. So it was a big help of this great experience. So since Zeros, I've been accepted in the biggest French talent agency called Adéquat, where they are the biggest star of France. So it's very good for the casting, because I want a big star for the girl. I applied for funds for writing to the CNC last week, and I have a meeting next week with a good producer, feature film producer, so I hope to sign as soon as possible. So thank you so much for your help and sharing all this amazing experience, and I hope you will succeed to shoot your movie as mine. Thank you.
Hi. So all the French projects are now together. So I'm Anita, I'm British, I'm based in London, and my producer is called Baptiste, and sadly he can't be here, and he's based in the south of France. My project is called Bus Stop, and it will be my first feature. I'm the writer-director, and it will be a French, Algerian, and possibly Belgian co-production. So, The Bus Stop is a character-led drama about two brothers from Algeria. It's set in two locations. One is a rural village in northeast Algeria. It's deep in the mountains, there's nothing to do. It's about 500 kilometers from the capital. And the other setting is Montpellier in the south of France, which is quite a bourgeois, cultural, vibrant, cosmopolitan city with nudist beaches and clubs and a lot of cultural activities. So they're very different. And in the Berber village, which is basically they're culturally Muslim people, but they come from an agricultural tradition, and they have traditions going back 7,000 years. So they are Muslim, but they're very rural, they're very agrarian. So in this village, there's not many choices of things to do for men or women. 62% of the population of Algeria is under 35, and the choices are get a job, if you can, work as if you're a boy you can drive a tractor, or if you're a girl you can work in a shoe shop, it's not great. You can study, which is going to be 2 hours travelling each way, there and back every day in the city. But if you study, you're not going to be qualified to go to Europe after. It's not going to mean the same, your diploma. And then you might still have to get a menial job. There's not a lot of choices. So you can become a soldier, if you're a man, or you can leave. So those are the kind of choices that the village people have. And the main character, Ali, is 28. We saw him before in the Samos bus stop story. He's decided 6 years ago to leave, to go to France to try his luck. He doesn't have skills, he's not going to study, he doesn't want to be a soldier. So he goes to France, and he still hasn't really stabilised his position in France. In fact, in his time there, it's got a lot worse for him, because now without papers, and he hasn't got a proper job, and people are starting to be suspicious of Algerians, wherever they're from, because of the recent attacks. So he's in quite a precarious position, and he's still there in the south of France. And then Nordine, who's 18, his younger brother, he's had a plan for quite a few years. He saw Ali go, and he didn't want to be any of those other choices. He's decided to study, so he's worked really hard, and he's got great grades, and it's enabled him to take a place in a French university. So he's managed to get his family and an extended family to support him, and he's going to the same city as his brother because he wants to be with his brother. You have to live with someone that you know if you're going to do that. You have to have residency. And Ali doesn't really know that Nordine was going to do this. So when the film starts off, Nordine is really excited. He wants to meet Ali. Ali knows he's coming, but he's not that thrilled. And then Nordine leaves for France and starts university. But when he gets to the south of France, Ali hasn't painted exactly the picture of south of France that Nordine would like. It's a sunny place, it's nice, but there are difficulties for Ali. And France at the moment is living through an atmosphere of fear, suspicion, and violence. We've had the Nice attacks, we've had Belgium, we've had Bataclan, we've had Hebdo. It's bad for France right now. So Nordine literally walks into that, is reunited with a brother he doesn't really know anymore, and they're both in this milieu of suspicion and you're Algerian, what are you doing? So the story's about how this love story between the two brothers from the same place comes and goes. They come together, they go apart, they have difficulties, and just as they're coming together, in the story in France, there's an accident, a terrorist attack, and Nordine is badly injured. And so then Ali really has to take responsibility for him, and after the police interrogation, they're both questioned as victims and terrorists, and they have to go back. And the second part of the film is what they deal with in the village, where people are still suspicious of Ali, they're suspicious of them, they saw it on the news. Did they really get involved? How could they involve a good boy like Nordine? So Ali is ostracised in the village. It's about this, again, relationship that goes through to the end. Ali literally, when he goes back, he's got nothing. He's got nothing left. He'll have to raise Nordine back up to the boy he was when he left. He had to sort of save him. So that's the story. The changes are huge. When I came here last time, I had a love story that didn't really work between Ali and some girl, a Spanish girl, and there was a terrorism and there was Nordine. But now I just had to break it. And Lissy Ross and Christina and the group gave me the confidence to break it because I had the idea for a while. I just had to literally tear it apart. And now I went really deep into it. I did a lot more work over the summer and now, which is great. And I learned techniques that I used to write, these are new techniques for me, and it's helped me so much to understand the characters and just deepen all the motivation. So the story's character-led. It's not about the terrorism and the choices of the village. It's about these two men and what they face together. So that's what's helped me. And just other things, the interest in this is really personal, but I do like history and I like culture and I like concepts of identity and freedom. I'm British, but in my own country, I've spent a long time away from that country. Many years in America, I spent time in France, and I don't really fit in. I'm like Ali, I'm the black sheep of the family, don't fit in, but I'm also a good student like Nordine. So parts of those characters are in me, and then I live with a Berber Algerian for 10 years, so I know the village and the town. People say, write what you know in screenwriting, so I really tried to write all this rich stuff that I found in the village. But I really wanted to make this film, and I thought about this morning early with the strike and people going to Turkey. I was thinking, what did I remember, why I wanted to write it? And I wanted to make it before I saw Sissoko's film about Timbuktu, and it's about how ordinary people in the world, all of us, everybody in this room, is from countries that have had things happen, or accidents, or attacks, terrorism, every country, and how ordinary people, even though they're Berber Algerians, they don't want terrorism in their own country, and they don't want it in their lives. Nobody wants it, because the people who are doing it are crazy. And so it's about, even if you're Muslim and you're Berber and you're Algerian, you still don't want that in your private life, in your personal life. You don't want to be accused of it just because you're Muslim. So that's what the film's really about for me. So the progress is that, luckily, it's very fortunate, Baptiste de Montpellier and I, we got a development grant for this last year from the region, which is why it's set in Montpellier. And now, just after Missy Ross, I managed to write a 10-page treatment. It was rough, but it was enough depth of the story to enter the CineMed pitch competition. So that's in 2 weeks. I'll be pitching with Baptiste. We're first at 9 o'clock in the morning. In the CineMed Film Festival, I think Natasha's film is going, the short, and it's for a cash prize, so it's more money for development. But we got in, and it was 15 projects selected out of a lot of projects, so I'm really happy for that. It was the new story that we've got. So that's the progress, that we could win another trip to the MFI, 10,000 euros, 7, 6 or 4. And there's 15 projects, we've got like a 14-to-1 chance of getting something. But I just want to thank everyone here. It's just helped me, it's just been amazing. I'll never forget it. And my group, and Christina, and the techniques. And it's very emotional for me, so thank you.
I'm Thanasis, film director, screenwriter, and I have this project, Peter and the Wolf, which is a fairy tale. Usually I would be on the stage and have some act or something because it goes with the fairy tale thing. But now, I'm fortunate that I'm here because yesterday we thought that I wasn't ready to pitch, but I'm doing this for Marjorie. I usually need a night. I need a night to have all these thoughts come subconsciously in my mind. I don't know how it works, but this works for me creatively. I mean, and today I woke up a little bit more optimistic. Considering that we are in Pythagorean, and Pythagorean is the father is Pythagoras was born, and he said that 3 is a perfect number. In my society, in my community, and this fairy tale village, this is a fairy tale world outside, where they all believe in this rule. They're based their existence in the number 3, because they feel that 3 is a less danger number, that peers and peoples can be combined together. They have seen that they don't want conflict, they don't want costs, they don't want risk and prices, and for me all of this comes from love, and love comes from 2 people. So 3 is the perfect number. Fairy tales are usually want to be perfect. Peter lives in this community, and Peter is a teenager, and Peter just been to a relocation center because this is a procedure that it's very common procedure to relocate the peers to 3 families. But alas for Peter, Peter finds out that he ends up alone. He doesn't have he doesn't belong to a 3-member family. Danger to this community. Alarm. Why this young boy gets to be alone? Why did he fit? The numbers are always right. Everybody is in a 3-member family. What is going on with this village? So they have, but this procedure is something that they have already heard in a fairy tale. So maybe they have 3 days to solve this problem. The first day, everything is boiling in this village. Everything. All eyes over Peter. Peter feels awkward. Peter feels different, and he doesn't know why he feels different. This system made him, for a reason, different. But he's Peter. He goes out to the community and he says, "I'm Peter. I'm one of you. I don't know why you want me different." But they say it's okay. Maybe the second day we will find out what's going on. The solution. Everybody's looking in the fairy tale books solutions. So the second day comes and Peter is still alone. Nobody appeared. So they say that this peer might try, or subconsciously, as I work, and maybe I communicate with Peter somehow, he wants to find love. And this is the most dangerous thing that could ever happen to this community. So Peter is the key for this community to be destroyed. Peter is in prison. Peter mustn't find his other half of his own, his other half peer to connect to each other. He doesn't know what that means. And that's because Peter is a stubborn little boy and a fighter. He escapes and he's trying to find out what is going on with him and why he's different to his community. Friends and foes he finds out during his quests and his journey. And he finds out again that there is only one solution. He will be Parier, I'm sorry. It's a Greek word, parier, in this world. And he will end up alone if he doesn't find a solution and kill the other half of his love immediately. Third day comes, and Peter goes back to his village ready to say, I'm ready to kill my other half and never find love. But there he finds out that another Peter has come up to the village. Everybody believed that that was the Peter that was missing the second day. So Peter is in the most dangerous place. There is a chaos in this fairy tale universe. Everything is collapsing. This universe starts to disappearing time to time. It's only one day that all this universe and Peter disappears, and everyone is trying to believe who is Peter, who they should sacrifice, who is the one that shouldn't be in their community right now. So interrogation starts to Peter, brainwashing. He always sees fairy tales. He does a weird trip, like when Dumbo was drunk in the Disney movie. They try to wake up the other half, which is unconscious, with kissing methods, with other potions and love potions and some other fairy tale stuff. But it's the end of the day and this community is collapsing. So the mob wants blood, and the community, which became a mob, wants Peter dead. So they preparing the sacrificial procedure. Peter keeps saying, I am Peter. And then it's when the other self of Peter wakes up, and he goes also in the main square where all these procedures are happening, and he says, I am Peter. Peter finds out with all this procedure that the want to belong and want to be safe in this community becomes the need to love himself. And Peter finds out the strength to love himself, and he leaves the community behind. That's kind of the story. I hope that I didn't. For me, it's a very because that's what I begin with. I think fairy tales for me are very subconsciously journeys through something that you really feel. That's why I really use this. I really dream of fairy tales. I model many fairy tales. I draw fairy tales. It's my way of expression to narrate through fairy tales. And this is actually it's an allegory. It's a live fiction. It's live action. I'm sorry. It's a fiction. And I will use all my talents, because I am an architect also, and I really want this to be a handmade universe, no CGI, nothing with special effects from Hollywood part. This is going to be a handmade fairy tale, like maybe as Peter would made somehow. And I have a couple of screenwriters, producers. We have applied to all the possible funds in Europe. Thank you.
In December online.
Go back.